Ladies and gentlemen and fans of Valorant, welcome to what we would call the Vansilli and Kaplan just hanging out, right? I think we see a lot on YouTube, and a lot of the content creators are doing a lot of VOD reviews, and we thought it'd just be interesting for us to do some as well, Kaplan, just so that we kind of have like different perspectives, different opinions from different point of views, like from the sideshow point of view, from the Dust point of view, from our point of view, and then the fans can actually just watch these VODs and formulate their own opinions too.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it'll be fun for us to kind of mix our perspectives, you know, you being an analyst and a caster and me having just formerly in-game led for Space Station. I think we'll have a nice back and forth, and I think fans can probably learn a lot from our VOD review and hopefully, you know, follow and enjoy watching Valorant on a little bit of a higher level by the end of this video.
Fans and Vans as well, because I think I'd be able to learn a lot from the in-game leadership from somebody that's played at a pro level. So this is how we want to try to approach these VOD reviews. And at the same time, like, I know these matches sometimes could drag on to be very long. I mean, we tried to do a full video at first, but we thought it'd be easier to just digest it for important rounds or rounds we think would be important to talk about, and then we'll cut them forward so you guys could just fast forward to the sections that you want to see. So at least for the first VOD here, Kaplan, we're going to be focusing on 100 Thieves versus T1. This is going to be for first strike in the best out of 3. This is going to be a part 1 because we will also have a part 2 for the second map of this series too, which was played on Bind.
Yep, absolutely. I think one of the maps was played on Bind. Yep, I believe so. And this it was on Bind, yeah. And this is quarterfinals here for first strike. Took me a minute to recall. It's been a little bit.
Threw you under the bus there. It's like, am I right or am I wrong? I'll just throw it on you if you're wrong.
Of course, yeah. I'll take the heat. I'm ready.
All right, so let's dive right into it here. We'll talk about Haven. We have the screen paused up. I think what's important here is to talk about the agent composition for both of these teams. First one that we could really focus on is on the left side of your screen, where you see on the attacker side for 100 Thieves, where before this nerf that came out for Killjoy and for Cypher, or a buff depending if you really like how Killjoy is played now, it's changed how Steel and Brax are actually playing their Sentinel roles. So Steel is playing a Cypher, and on the other end of the spectrum for T1, you have Brax playing as Killjoy. So talk me through a little bit about your opinions on these changes for the playstyles for 100 Thieves and T1.
Yeah, sure. So, you know, I think a nice part about having a Cypher is you can play much slower on attack, right, and ignore a certain part of the map. And you don't have to worry about somebody flanking because those wires don't have that same range to deactivate that the Killjoy utility now has that's watching that flank there. A nice thing about Cypher, he can really take his own space. He can lurk a little more aggressively. In my opinion, he can actually defend a site a little better, like, you know, hold in that site by himself. So he's got a little bit more freedom, and I think it does open up your attack to be able to kind of use those cages to deny info and lurk around. But this is a really, in my opinion, difficult map for defense right now. It's hard to play the 3 sites with how weak defensive and kind of stall utility is in the game. So I think T1's in good shape having the Killjoy, because every time you have her ultimate, you pretty much have a really free, strong retake and can ignore one of those sites. So
definitely, I think the key word that you mentioned here, Adam, is the retake word, right? So when you're looking at Brax playing as a Killjoy, but at the same time for T1, they also have AZK playing as Breach. So because you have a map that has 3 sites, I think you're comfortable in a sense of the agent composition that T1 might have picked here to maybe give up sites and have somebody like Daze as Sova with the Initiator. You have AZK that's going to be playing Breach, and then you have Brax. All these 3 agents are going to be very helpful for these retakes, especially with the flashes that AZK and Spider could do on these retakes, and a Rolling Thunder, of course, of AZK.
Yeah, absolutely. Between, you know, Breach, Sova, and Killjoy, T1 just has an amazing retake comp, and I think they're probably pretty happy to be starting on defense with the comp they have. And then, I think one caveat to that is there's more strong ults on their team, so there's more ult orbs and points to spread around and have to share, but it's a good problem to have. Yeah,
definitely. We'll see, man. If those guys can get the frags in, sometimes it doesn't really matter, right? Like, it doesn't really just matter about the orbs, but sometimes if you're in that fragging department and it works out well, then you could always build those ults up right away.
100%.
So let's get into it. We'll talk about the first round here and this pistol round, and we'll notice this a lot in terms of a setup here for T1 on the defender side throughout the whole half, is that they kind of want to have maybe a better, like Skadoodle right now is playing towards C, but overall in his first half, he's basically going to be that turret that's going to go maybe hold towards C at the beginning, A towards the beginning, or B towards the beginning. But for the rest, for AZK, for Brax, for Days, it's pretty consistent of where these positions are or where they want to play their positions on defense. In my opinion, seems to be like a default that they have.
Right. Yep. Absolutely. And I think you could be more comfortable playing a default setup where you're more predictable if you plan to have confidence in your retakes because you're not really trying to catch people off guard as they hit a site as much.
So I think what's one thing that we could start off with is with the important pistol round is again, I just want to focus on the setup of what T1 was trying to do here at this point is a lot of these teams, or a lot of teams in general, especially when you're playing rank 2, it seems easier to split towards this long C garage into the sites to try to get a spike plan towards C. For their end, for T1 though, they know that Spider is always going to play towards that back C platform. He's a nuisance for a lot of teams playing in terms of that spot. But in this round, we wanted to have a lot more support by having Skadoodle play towards that area. So if you're actually looking at this minimap here, what Dazes will try to do is try to get as much map control as he can or information by using his kit. For example, like a recon dart towards this spot. You also have a turret from Brax that's going to be towards the sewers. So you just want to play more contact and fighting towards this A side, and maybe be more inclined rather to play a retake towards the A side. But I think T1 overall loves to take control of A site first, like the A choke point. As the reason why I'm doing this rectangle here is you'll eventually see here that AZK is going to try to play a fault line that's going to break towards this area. So they could try to see if they could stun some people off and readapt as they go.
And it's a good setup for T1 because if the fault line goes off, if Daze darts into a main and it goes off, right, he could know it's safe. And leave really confidently, as well as the fact that if you look at where this turret here is on A, I'll kind of point at its field of view here, and so this is really popular as a retake turret because you can't walk out short or long against it. So the fact that Daze is starting A but that turret is there tells me that they plan to be able to ignore A at some point here. Maybe Daze can just confidently leave the whole site and go over rotate, and they don't have to worry about knowing if they're an A or not because that turret's there to let them know. It's
exactly what's going to happen because after this dart comes out and they don't really spot anything, you saw the fault line that came out too. So the idea of the fault line combined with the recon dart is that if they actually are able to stun a couple of players, then the recon dart technically should be able to ping a few players if they're not fast enough to shoot the dart out. So the dart comes out, they see nobody. There was a smoke that came from Spider at the same time, and as it's open, you already see that Daze is over-rotating back to play the retake A side, and you see how crunched they are for T1 on that C side. They even want to give garage at this point. And what are your thoughts, actually, Kaplan, on leaving that garage control open for the attackers on the defender side?
Yeah, I think it's fine. I think if you have confidence in playing a retake on C, then there's no sense in spending too much effort to play for space required to get C, right? Because if you're comfortable kind of leaving it, I think Omen can live really well in back plat there on C with his paranoia, his teleports, his smokes. So you don't really need to stop the split. If you feel comfortable, you can let them into C. Then something quick to note is T1 might assume that 100 Thieves might think that T1 could be pushed up on A, right? Because that dart never broke. The deep smoke ended up happening on A main. So there's a chance that 100 Thieves thinks T1 is really deep controlling that space because it's a popular setup.
And now, so far, you could see, at least on this minimap on the B side, that the focus for 100 Thieves seems to be towards that garage to start things off by putting Asuna in here. But for the rest of 100 Thieves, they're really trying to go into this B site. And I like how they open it up. I mean, instead of trying to go for a contact play first, you had still put the camera up on the left side of the site. Then you also had the Jet just starting to dash in with Dicey, just trying to get more information after. But that alarm bot is not going to spot much because you have the cloudburst at the same time. So they have a chance really to play for a plant for 100 Thieves and fall back towards this mid side if they kind of want to. But the thing is, they don't have much more information outside of the front of the site. And what seems to be going to be the main factor is Brax playing towards that backside, where his goal, I think, at this point is just to try to stay alive as long as he can.
Right. Yeah, absolutely.
So you see, he doesn't even want to play contact. He's playing behind the gong. He's not peeking out too far out, too far left. He knows that there's Dicey that was on the top of the B site over here, and it was clearing out both links. And you could see how 100 Thieves were doing it too. They had Nitro Smoke on this side. They had another Cloudburst on the right side too. So again, T1 playing very passively on this type of retake, where for 100 Thieves, in my eyes, after this post plant, they want to try to focus on Asuna to try to get the backstab here from the garage entrance.
Yep, absolutely. And he's pretty early with it, but I think you could even reflank late after he gets a kill. And it looks like that's exactly what Skadoodle, not Skadoodle, Dicey's going to go for here.
And what's your thoughts here at this point? Because you just saw here that Brax was able to come out from the B site in the back of the gong and get 2 kills. Was it a good idea here for 100 Thieves to just play the B site? But they didn't really fall back. They tried to get control more towards that C link instead on that pinch, instead of trying to play the spike on the front of the site, leaving Hiko pretty much by himself in the end here.
Yeah, I think it's hard because I think planting for this middle kind of area and having this flank from C link from garage is a really popular way to play the post plant. I think it's great. But part of the problem is that they smoked C link, and then Asuna fought so early on C link that when the other choke point on C-Link is smoked and they're not ready to go through it, the only place they can look is that garage flank. So I think the smoke kind of combined with how early he was made it so that it wasn't a super strong lurk. And that's why I like that Dicey started reflanking. But by the time T1 is, 4 players on site, I think they can expect the reflank. And right, I think so. See how the smoke goes up, and it doesn't really give AZK and Skadoodle anything to watch except where he is. And then he peaks a little early. He does get a kill.
So basically 2 players watching him pretty much after that. So when the smoke comes up, you would expect nobody's going to push through from 100 Thieves. So then the last 2 players that are playing rotate basically from Skadoodle and Spider from the C side, like you said here, Kaplan, they could just focus on the back garage, and the timing was a little bit off on how they wanted to close in for 100 Thieves.
Exactly. Yeah, I think this was a timing error given that smoke being up and T1 not really being ready for the retake yet.
So right now, just means that it's going to be a pistol round win here for T1. I don't think it was necessarily anything that was extraordinary from T1 on the retake. It wasn't really that much of a retake play in my end. I didn't see much coming in from that side, more than, again, just a missed timing for 100 Thieves.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, exactly.
Awesome. As the pistol round was won by T1, we went into an anti-eco for T1 where they only lost 1 player, being Skadoodle, on that second round, which means, as you could see now from this buy menu, he's already gone to buy an operator into this third round. So this is going to be quite interesting to see how they want to play this side for T1, especially due to the fact that we know that it's going to be a rifle round for 100 Thieves, but for the rest of T1, they're really just keeping their Spectres that they had from the previous round, rather, Kaplan.
Yeah, and I really like that Skadoodle's getting right into buying the op when I think about it, because once you're playing against an op and you're on attack, it really changes the pace and how careful you have to be. As well as the fact that I think people are just going to expect it a little less on this kind of bonus round from T1, right? Because if he buys an op here, the logic is, well, if they lose the round, they can all buy full rifles, and Skadoodle can't buy anything. But he is also, I think he's probably 3 points along on his staggers right now.
I was going to say, yeah, that the important thing to note, which we don't have the information so far, unfortunately, with the UI, is you also have to think that an extra round ahead. So, for example, as you just mentioned, Adam, if he's able to buy an operator here, he dies, but he's able to get a couple of frags, or maybe fight for an orb, or how T1 plays this round here, it gives them a chance that if they lose the round, the rest of the team could still potentially buy rifles into the next, and he could just pop knives into the fourth round.
Yeah, exactly. So I think it's a more safe choice to get the op here than it looks, as well as bringing a lot of, raising your chance of winning this round by a good bit.
Yeah. And now, as you can see from this minimap, pretty much standard. As I mentioned to you before, AZK and Spider always playing towards this left side of the site. You have Killjoy, so Brax is going to put a lot of utilities onto this B side, but they are actually pressuring more towards A again, but with a different angle by having Skadoodle up and down towards that sewers. So I like how there was just a lot of smokes that were thrown at first just to try to gain that map control for the attacker side to get the cross, but they didn't expect Skadoodle actually to come down the sewers to get that kill.
Right. And something that's totally beautiful about this is we saw the on the pistol round, we saw that Omen smoke, that breach stun, and that Sova dart go off. But on that round, it was exclusively Daze playing it. So on this round, they do the exact same utility, but they have 3 players there to fight. So it's a nice setup when you do something very loud and utility invested at the start of the round, but it doesn't necessarily tell the other team where you're playing. So it's hard to read, even though they did it over and over on pistol already.
So something very simple as well that I do enjoy too is the fact that, yes, you've lost a player on the attacker side. Could be any team right now at this point. You're on a 5 versus 4. You weren't really set up for a trade, but you're still trying to set up for map control. And how they got map control over this side for 100 Thieves was just a simple camera that was thrown from Steel at this point, just to try to see if Skadoodle was still going to try to play this aggressively towards the sewer side and maybe catch somebody that might play towards the Cubbies. With that, though, you could see that nobody was playing there from 100 Thieves' point of view. From our point of view as of the observer, we could see very passive play right now from T1 as they're looking to turtle towards the back of the site and even set up for another retake play despite them having a men advantage.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that really says a lot about how hard it can be to hold against executes and how, exactly playing to your advantage when retakes feel pretty easy and letting a team plant the spike doesn't feel very punishing in Valorant. And the best way to get your man advantage is if you play a retake, you're guaranteeing that all 5 of you will be fighting all 4 of them at the same time, right? You can't get caught out.
So the combo came out with the camera. You have the Owl drone that's really going to try to clear both Cubbies, and they're still looking to try to execute this. And when you're looking at this from the point of view of T1, as we said, very passive play from T1 at this point because they have agents like Killjoy and also Sova that's going to be more useful on retakes, but they're really letting Skadoodle, that duelist, to be on his own to try to op and hold the site on his own.
Yep. That's a beauty of Jet. Even without her dash, it's still basically a retake, right? He's so slippery. He's got 3 smokes. He can just keep throwing them down, playing to make his plays or get out if he wants to.
I mean, that's good enough, right? You can't ask for anything better for the guy that's just holding the site like that on his own, left and right, dropping two key players too, right? For the team, you only have Hiko and Asuna left for 100 Thieves. Spider went for the big flank at the same time. Look how crazy that was on how they wanted to take that retake, though. Let's take a second here on the combination that was thrown. So you have a drop from this pause that came here from Brax. I think this dart does come in here from this was a dart from Daze, wasn't it?
Yeah. Yep.
So Daze is going to dart him and see at the bottom of the site. He's even pinged at the same time. I mean, if it wasn't a recon dart, it was the Owl drone no matter what. You have a fault line that came in from the spawn side here from AZK that threw it from the A link. So they really knew where the last player was at, and they converged it with some great combos. And on top of that, after the fault line, you have a paranoia that was thrown from Spider. Towards the hell to make sure that they could really get this kill onto Asuna. So very, very well done for 100 Thieves. For T1 on the combination and just try to retake the site. The thing is, though, when you're looking at it, Asuna is still able to get 2 kills of his own.
Yeah,
before,
which is unfortunate. I think really impressive and unlucky for AZK that he got him. Then maybe Brax jumped a little early, but it's good to, even in a 4v1 where you know where the guy is, right? He's stuck. How can you lose? It's good to use as much utility as you can to try to make it as clean as possible, because the less rifles and armor you lose, the more money you have. So I think it was important, even in a 4v1, that T1 is super careful to not lose players.
And I think this could also be the round that we started to see why it was starting to get a little bit more one-sided at the beginning of the half for T1, is because it was a heavy investment, 400 Thieves at this point for this full rifle round. On the other end for T1, as we mentioned before, they had 3 Spectres, a Bulldog, and an Op. What did they get out of it? They saved Skadoodle's Op. They have Spider now that upgraded to a Phantom. You have Skadoodle that has, after those 3 kills, an ultimate ready for the next round for the Blade Storm. So the economy, or even just the weaponry, was good enough here for T1 going into the next round, going into the further rounds, as you could see the money situation now. So they had the full save for 100 Thieves. You have the economy that's built up on the right side here for T1. That's where it gets a little bit slippery for the team that's falling behind from pistol and losing second round and gun round.
Right, and then what you can try to do here, right, you've got the Sova ult online, is you can start to, you're missing some key ults still, your Killjoy and Breach ult. Well, when you have really powerful weaponry and a huge economy advantage, and 100 Thieves might have to eco here, it's an excellent round to make sure that certain characters are farming the ult orbs, or getting the defuse, or letting them run around and hunt that kind of last kill against an eco. There's a good opportunity for T1 to start getting more ults online and sort of snowballing to steal the rest of the half.
Perfect. So with that, we could focus more onto the rounds that we think that we had some good rounds for both of these teams, and round number 6 is going to be that one here, Kaplan, as we're going to talk about how Brax was basically at 1 point away from building the ultimate right now and grabbing the lockdown for Killjoy.
Right.
So let's run through that.
Yeah, so I think this is an excellent round to kind of show an example of how you can really predict how certain players are going to play their starting setups based on, their ult economy. And then I'll just pause it real quick to kind of, well, actually, I'll let it play a little closer throughout the freeze time here. But we do know that Brax is 6 out of 7 on his ult points here. And you can see he's heading over to A. And just when you study kind of, when you study where the ult orbs are, the long A orb is awfully easy for defenders to get. It's not extremely easy, but you can quickly run up and grab it behind a smoke. And likewise, the long C orb is really easy for the attackers to get. So when you have when you're 1 point away from a really powerful ultimate, there's on a round like this, you want the Killjoy ultimate for this round, right? Because 100 Thieves did buy here, but if they lose this round, they're back on eco, and you can start kind of snowballing and farming up ultimates again as T1. So they want to get Killjoy this ult orb here so that they can use it in this round. So I think we're going to see that Brax is going to stick this ult orb while Skadoodle covers him. And then my thought process would be you probably want to play retake on A or C after that, because the Killjoy ult is very powerful for retaking either one of those sites compared to B, but we'll see how the round plays out.
Just to add on with a quick question on that here, Kaplan, because you're saying how your Killjoy ult, say that 10 times fast, would be good enough here for retakes for A side and C. So the one of the spots that you could place the Killjoy ult for the retake is this corner right here. Where would your spot be for C side retakes?
If you put it, I believe here. Or if you drop into garage and put it in this corner, both of them pretty much get all of the C site. So it's not quite as ideal. I would say that the A retake ult might be one of the best Killjoy ults in the game. The C one, at least you're clearing out the C site, and the only place they can be is long. But the hard one about playing retake B with a Killjoy ult is you really only get the site, and it's so popular for teams to play from mid and put so many numbers toward mid.
That's it.
It's kind of hard to get good value out of it.
Back garage, back window, just very hard to play that versus a retake on site. I think a lot of retakes plays on B is you have to fight that front side if they're playing for that type of plant for the attackers.
Right, and A is the hardest of these 3 sites to play the spike from long and short. So it's definitely the best site where you're just claiming the whole site with your Killjoy ult.
So here's what I find interesting too is that we say that the defender side, whenever you get the Killjoy ult, you kind of want to fall back, but they still want to fight it here for T1. So Skadoodle still gets an opening kill, but man, Seal, the way that he challenges with the Vandal throughout this whole tournament versus an operator is just insane.
Yeah, but that was crazy that he pulled that off. But nonetheless, even though it sort of worked out for T1, I found it to be very scary. You'd really be sad if Brax fell early in this round. It would make your chance of winning the round go down. But you can see they do fall out of the site because they can just feel confident in plopping down that Killjoy ult.
And this is what's great too, actually, as you mentioned that now, Kaplan, and it gave me an idea of what was really happening at this point for 100 Thieves is that Neural Theft gave that opportunity to say, look, there's actually 2 players from T1 stacking towards the A side. We could try to fall back. So you already heard Asuna trying to run and make some noise before. That forced actually T1 to start falling back and trying to look more towards the A-Link, B-Link side. But in the end, into consideration of what you mentioned at the beginning of the round was that you still have a lockdown available for Brax, which means for them to fall back in the when they still wanted to focus on an A defense to start, it's still okay onto a mid round from the way that they decided to adapt into the round for T1. Let's make sure that we converge into B. We open up the B site, we defend the B site, and if we have to retake A or C, we still have that lockdown.
Exactly. And then huge props. It doesn't quite work out for Dicey here, but the fact that, this is a perfect example of how to use these kind of utilities on a gun round for Jet, right? He dashes up with his daggers toward A-Link, and you can see he narrowly whiffs on Brax. Had he traded himself and gotten the Killjoy ult out of the round and died for it, and given his team a 3v3 without the lockdown, their chances would be way higher to win the round, right? A 3v3 where you've planted on A and the defending team doesn't have a lockdown to get it back would just be massive. So unfortunate he didn't get the pick on Killjoy, but really good effort from him, and he ended up getting in this lurk position, as we see.
That's right. And here was a little bit of a mishap. I think this is a small miscommunication mishap again from T1, because Spider was running around the corner with only his knife out when we knew that Dicey was actually making a lot of noise and a lot of presence towards that B side. Thankfully, though, when you're looking at this picture-in-picture, Brax was able to come back and swing across just to make sure that Dicey wasn't able to do that much damage from his position, from his lurk roll. So Spider was able to stay alive, and maybe it's just on pure luck because Brax was going out to put his lockdown at the same time,
right,
too.
yeah, absolutely. Unfortunate. I think, again, Dicey's hoping he finds Brax and kills him, but he didn't quite get a chance to get either one.
And there's one thing that I could mention to you guys at the same time, too, is that this lockdown, as you could see, it covers pretty much a lot of the A site. With the exception, of this corner all along A. One thing, though, is I do remember a video from Seth that showed some set mollies that you could actually throw, some set nanostorms as Killjoy into this corner, just to make sure that you pop those out, and anybody that's trying to run away and still try to fight to make sure that he could maybe catch some players off guard in rotations, well, this spot is not going to be a place where they could hide safely. So it's a very powerful ult combined with the mollies. That's not being used by Brax at this point into this round, because I think he used it at the beginning of on the B side. But it's definitely one thing that you could consider as a Killjoy main or trying to learn Killjoy. Try to find a way that try to find that set molly so you could get in that corner. It could be very powerful really for the team. Yeah.
Yep. You can chuck some shock darts back there as well.
True.
And then as we let it play out, I just can't emphasize enough how important it was for T1 to use their ultimate, even though 100 Thieves only have 2 players alive, right?
Yeah.
Because it just makes it extremely 100% guarantee pretty much that you're going to get this round and put them on eco. As well as the fact that you can see it doesn't end up getting scrappy, and T1 can find both these kills and keep all 4 rifles alive. So again, did they need the Killjoy ult to win a 4v2? Maybe not, but it guarantees it, and it lets them keep more of their weaponry alive and just keep building that huge bank that they've got going.
Well, it definitely got scrappy for Austin, though. I don't know why he actually went into the lockdown, but
I think.
Go ahead. Sorry, Kaplan.
It's a fun little bait setup if you know you're pretty screwed, to let one guy get locked down and then you sort of have the other come and protect him while everyone chases. It's really unfortunate that he seemed to lose track of the timer and they both ended up getting locked down. It's actually a miracle that Hiko ends up getting one in the end.
So even then, Brax puts the lockdown in. He gets 2 kills on top of that, so he's already building up his ultimate points for the next lockdown already. And as Kaplan mentioned before, you're in a situation you're going to be on ego. Technically, it should be easier right now for T1 to farm these kills, trying to figure out who's closer as well to the ultimates, and maybe try to emphasize on those type of players to maybe try to farm those eco kills as well. Maybe that's why sometimes on some defaults on attacker or defense, you could see that change a little bit, just to put more emphasis on one player that they really want to build the ultimate points for.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right, so after we just watched what just happened on the previous round with the Killjoy ult, it's now time to look into round number 7. At this point, though, we did mention the composition that T1 has from the way that they could play the retakes from the agents that they chose. Well, you also still have the Rolling Thunder here for AZK into this round. And you can also see that it's been a rough start for Nitro and for Dicey at the beginning of this game. T1's doing a very good job of containing them in terms of how much pressure they could bring for the team. So at 0-5 and 0-6 right now for 100 Thieves in terms of the ratios, T1 is looking quite confident into this first half.
Right, absolutely. And I think for 100 Thieves, you kind of want to get as much as you can out of this round. For T1, you don't want to use a powerful retake if you don't have to. Powerful retake ultimate on this round, right? You'd rather use it on gun rounds, so you put them back on eco. T1 already inherently have the advantage here. But I really like what 100 Thieves does by kind of doing a play that we're going to see they're going to really rush in and just force a plant on the B site here. It's probably the easiest site to just get the spike down as quick as you can. And I think it's a really good play because it kind of forces T1 to have to use their breach ult, right? If 100 Thieves sort of spread out, went for picks with a sheriff or something, T1 might not have to burn an ult. But instead, they just kind of put T1 in a situation where they're going to end up using the Rolling Thunder on this round. And it's going to help 100 Thieves down the road.
Just for me, just to look back into what we were explaining at the beginning of the VOD too, is the whole default and adapt. So default spot for Spider, default spot for AZK, and Skadoodle being that the one that's moving around on the site on the sites is playing towards sewers, and then basically default positions here for Daze and Brax on the long A side. And how do they adapt is that they adapt quickly, right? So as soon as you're able to get Skadoodle into position right at the sewers, and with that smoke he doesn't spot anything and he has full control, these guys are just going to automatically start falling back here for Daze and for Brax towards this B side. So despite all this being thrown, maybe even hot hands, or if there was noise that was being made, Skadoodle is going to be able to hear it from his position right here. But even then, as he already holds that angle, you're already looking much stronger for T1 on these crossfire setups to hold the B side.
Right. And even if Skadoodle ends up getting rushed later, he's Jet. He could just smoke and dash out. And no problems.
So the Aldron's going to spot a one player in. So I think for that, it's just information gathering that was very well done here for Brax and for Dazed. And on top of that, like I said, you only have a couple of pistols. It's a big Rolling Thunder. I mean, the Rolling Thunder is going to help a lot to take control at the front of the site. The thing is, you don't have much to fight towards the front of B. But thankfully, they have the Cloudburst, and that's good enough.
And the better weapons, yep. And I think for 100 Thieves, you didn't invest much in this round, and you forced them to use their Rolling Thunder, and now they don't have it in your gun round. I think you're actually pretty happy if you're 100 Thieves here.
Yeah, Spike Plant, and you force an ult out.
Makes their chance of winning this round upcoming here much better, right? If you're playing around where you're scared about planting a spike because you're just going to get Rolling Thundered on after you set up your post plant, I mean, not having to worry about that. And, they have finally feel like they have some room to get back into the game.
Now, as it looks like the only thing that we only have charge is the From the Shadows from Spider into this round here. But I think we should still be pretty close for Asuna. There you go. See? In his point of view, he's at one orb away, so they're already setting up for him to get that orb. The smoke came towards the top of front of C side, and then he picked up the orb, and now he's got the ult ready.
Yep.
And for 100 Thieves so far, every time that Asuna was able to get a run it back, he was the first initiator into the round. So he ran it back towards the garage on that third round, if I'm not mistaken, that I mentioned before, or was it the fifth round? The one where they got the first round for 100 Thieves that they won was him just doing the run it back.
Fourth
in the
round.
Yeah.
And so they're definitely happy to have a powerful ult here, and kind of. If you really look at the ults here, run it back compared to From the Shadows, finally 100 Thieves actually ignoring the economy for the rest of the rounds here. I think they have the better shot this round, just because they have a powerful ult and T1 doesn't.
So for the 100 Thieves point of view, is you could see that they're playing this very patiently. They haven't had much map control, and they don't know where T1's playing yet. So how do they try to get this information? They're getting the information first off just to make sure that nobody's pushing down towards B or from the garage, from the camera of where Steel is setting that up. Right after that, you have a two-man setup just to prevent any pushes from long C, but where they're going to focus on trying to open up and get more information. And the real contact is an Alendro now being thrown by Hiko, and just behind is going to be the young fraggers Asuna and Dicey. So Dicey, as you mentioned here, Adam, could dash away if he's under heavy attack, and at the same time, Asuna could have a run it back so that they could actually get all that information as well.
Yep.
I like this. This is just one Cloudburst. So one Cloudburst, even though he got pinged, he knows that he's not under that much pressure. So it's just holding him back in the area for Skadoodle. Once that pops up, he's going to be in a better angle to watch towards long C, but he's also going to have to be faster on the reaction time to try to land those shots because he doesn't know how many players crossed over into the sewers. So this is going to be a big fight between Brax now and Dicey and Asuna.
He's got a little bait set up with his turret. He can swing off his turret here.
And there you go. So they're running back to be the first contact. Yeah.
Yeah. I'd be upset if I was Brax there. I certainly would feel like I should have had that kill.
So while all this was super nice here towards this A side, and we didn't get to mention it before, so I'm just going to rewind a quick second. So this insane flick that came from Austin that got the kill onto Brax, how does T1 actually adapt into this very well is just due to the fact of paying attention of where Spider's at and where Spider is into the next second, which he's popping a From the Shadows right over there where he's pinging. So with that now, He may not have that right distance that's going to be able to see these players into sewers or how many players are there, but he knows that his ult got canceled by Hiko on the grass. So that means that he has the idea and could let T1 know that it's not actually necessarily going to be a full hit. If it is, they're going to be on lesser numbers on the A side, but they still have a split somewhere. So from him... Oh, sorry, Kaplan.
No, just especially when you saw that drone and that arrow above Skadoodle, you know, Hiko was active toward A, and you're seeing him toward C. It makes it very obvious that they want to go C.
Exactly. So with that, then the ult gets canceled, and when Spider is back in his position, and this is off camera that he gets as a kill, if I'm not mistaken, but him playing towards this platform again that it got canceled, he knows that these two players, or at least one player, is coming eventually towards the C side, and his choice now is that he holds it for as long as he can, and gets his team to come back, or as an anchor player and a do-or-die spot, you challenge it, try to get at least one with you. If you're lucky enough and you're good enough, you get both kills, and that's good enough for the team. But just getting one is going to be mission successful, definitely, for Spider here. So there you go. See, off camera, he does get the kill onto Nitro. It's traded off to Steel, but with him being dead and Steel moving up that area, they know the spike is moving there. On their perspective for T1, what they have left in terms of a retake, right? Still a 4 versus 3 in the end at this point, because Spider is about to die. But they have Breach, and they have the Initiator coming in here from Dazed. So they have the Recon Dart. They also still have an Owl Drone that's available, and there's Skadoodle with the Op. So it's still very strong for them to play the retake.
Right. And just a fun little example of how nuanced decisions and impact can be in this game, right? It's not just, do you take a fight and at least you can get one and go 1-for-1 as the anchor player there? The fact that Spider got Nitro is really big, right? Because Nitro had smokes up. He had Paranoia, one of the strongest abilities in the game. Having the smokes and Paranoia for your post plant, you're in really good shape. The fact that he got Nitro really hurts 100 Thieves post plant. If he had killed Steel but gotten traded out by Nitro, it would have been a much less impactful 1-for-1 trade for Spider to do. So he's definitely happy that he picked the right agent to shoot.
Yeah. So this, I like the combo that they still had here for T1 on this retake. And first off, let's talk about two quick things, actually, as you see the round is coming in for T1. This is going to be a diffuse with probably the lowest time I've ever seen. 0.009. So it was pretty dope. But I think from one thing is the spike position, right? I think Kaplan, you mentioned to me off camera and before we actually started this recording that this is actually an interesting spot to have that spike plant.
Yeah, it's nice because when the spike is more popularly planted toward this large default box, then the more kind of shallow peak you can do from long C is on the right. When this spike is planted all the way on the right here, from AZK's point of view, there's a really nice, quick and shallow jiggle peek you can do as the attackers defending your spike from either the cubby or far back on long. So it's a little harder to, it's a little harder to guess kind of where they're going to peek from when it's planted in this position.
And from 100 Thieves' point of view is they're literally all lined up in that same angle for just a tight peek, just to try to see, so they don't have to like wide swing too much from the corner, especially when it's planted towards the back over here, or maybe on this side. You're giving yourself out too much to try to get these kills. This is a great way to like play that jiggle peek, as we like to call it in Counter-Strike, and have those fast peaks and maybe even go for pre-fired shots, knowing where the spike is planted and knowing when you could ping that at the same time to just go for that advantageous peak. But the thing is, T1 they were still able to win this round no matter what, and I think it's all due to this man right here that we have on screen with AZK. Right, he's got a bunch of flashpoints. He did a fault line towards the bottom of the C ramp, and while he did the fault line and Skadoodle was on the top here opping, he also threw an aftershock just to make sure that they clear out this area. So the most common spawn or a deadly spot to hide into is easily cleared out. So Steel is going to fall down. And then the last two that are peeking around here, I mean, it was just unfortunate that Austin wasn't able to get his shots in on that garage side, as you could see. As we play, I'll play it over again so you could see it one more time. But Austin, he maybe could have landed that shot onto Skadoodle, but there was also the cloud burst that was thrown at the same time. A nice recon dart came out too. Like they did everything right for 100 Thieves at this point, but it just came down to the firing power. Look at that. AZK is pushing forward. Daze is winning this fight long range. then the trade support that they have at the same time. So it was very, very well played for T1.
Right. Yeah. And then I'll go, just point out something, a quick little hypothetical here is it did work out for T1, but with only 0.09 seconds left on the defuse on the spike, right? And, you can look back at the round before with 100 Thieves where they just kind of ran up B on an eco and, they just got rolling thundered and whatever. It's kind of a throwaway round. Doesn't look super important, but you can see how, it got this close without that ability, right? Imagine if there was a rolling thunder, AZK could have just walked right up to the close part of the long choke and just launched it down and ulted everybody. And 100 Thieves would have had such a smaller chance to win this round. So they don't end up getting this round, but you can look at what they did on the eco round and forcing T1 to use a powerful ult and see how it made their life a lot easier on this round. They really had a chance to win this. Whereas if rolling thunder was part of the equation here, much smaller chance for them. So
a great way for them to burn it on a round before, definitely.
Exactly.
And looking at this round, and this is what you mentioned as well, Kaplan, is that them losing this round here could be in a position where they're going to be forced to save into this, which makes it technically a little bit easier for T1 to be able to move forward. But I think things have changed a little bit in terms of that of what they had to say for 100 Thieves at that point. So we'll see into this round here that Daze does have his Hunter's Fury ready, and then what they're trying to do here at this point for 100 Thieves. So you'll notice off camera or that a Hunter's Fury. So Daze's position right now, his Hunter's Fury is going to look to attack the Cubby area. So every single round. Again, positioning when you're looking at where T1 is at, very basic of where they have set pieces for their players, but it's how they adapt towards that mid round. So they want to challenge, they want to fight the choke point at A side first, and then they want to try to figure out where 100 Thieves are playing. So that Hunter's Fury that's going to come into this lobby. If he hits a couple of players, this is great because that's going to be information even if he doesn't get any kills. And if he doesn't pulse anybody, that's also good information because he knows that there's not going to be any immediate pressure from 100 Thieves towards the A site, which means now when you're looking at the point of view right now, Skadoodle in the front of our screen, he does have support from AZK towards the back of the B side. So that if this information is now known that there's nobody playing towards the A choke, then they could be ready for anybody else trying to maybe work towards the grass area or the window, right?
Right.
That said, though, they unfortunately suffered a different fate because
we'll see that anything is possible here. That's the moral of the story.
And there you go. So the Stingers comes out of the window. You see the pulse now coming in from Daze that was really focused more towards the choke and not the window. So don't think about this being a missed ultimate from from Dazed. Is just trying to get that information on this A choke point at first. But I think it was more this area. I thought that you saw it from the point of view of Skadoodle that maybe he was going to try to look towards this grass side. But it's definitely something very hard to try to do when, you got wide swings from Stingers out the window, and it kind of caught AZK off guard at the same time.
Yeah, no, and friendly reminder, that's a 1,000 credit SMG that just completely instantly won a fight against a rifle.
That got rid of a $5,000 op and a $2,900 Phantom.
That's right. Something else. You just can't see that coming sometimes.
Yeah. And that's unfortunately a small mistake at this point. I know Spider was trying to... Even then, I know he was trying to swing in and maybe try to get the planter. But at this point, you have 1 minute and 22 seconds left into the round. So, in terms of a player's decision, maybe because there was a smoke towards that front, he thinks maybe he could kill the spike carrier and fall back and then try to make it a 3 versus 3 to make things a little bit easier. But look how far out they're spread out here for Braxton for Dazed. Dazed is still towards the A link. He's smoked out. He cannot support or trade. And Brax is also on eventually a super flank here from long A. So I think it's an individualistic play that maybe wasn't necessary because just the round before, you also had another 4-on-3 situation that you were still able to win because you also have Daze that is still alive with with an owl drone that's still available, and probably his recon dart's going to be ready soon. And Spider has a paranoia. There's still so much in the kit right now for T1 to be able to play a retake at this point.
Yeah, no, and I think exactly like you're pointing out the agents and their specific utility. For me, I don't think Spider's play is a great play regardless,
Hmm.
but an easy way to know it's not a great play is Paranoia is such an important retake tool and he's not using it, and
Yeah.
how he can't use it, as well as the fact that with that spike plant, usually the attacking team wants to play the spike post plant from mid,
Hmm.
and those smokes on that front choke point really end up being important to threaten defusing the spike. Um, and he didn't have a smoke at the time, but he would have
Yeah.
had one. The fact that he dies kind of removes that possibility too.
And the fact that
Makes
he didn't even use the paranoia for himself, if anything.
Yeah, exactly. Yep. At that point, you're committing. You might as well use it.
Okay. Now we get into the last round of the first half here. It's 9-2 in favor of T1. We could see from this scoreboard is that we have a couple of players actually, Kaplan, that are ready to go for this ultimate. So you have Nitro that's one away from the shadows. You have Asuna that's one away from a run it back. You have Daze that's two away from a Hunter's Fury, and Spider with two away from a from the shadows as well. So looking at all of this, though, it definitely makes sense that you want to try to give this ultimate for Asuna, as they have done in the past few times that that Asuna was maybe one away from getting that run it back.
Yep. And we're gonna see him head over to Long C again, and it's a good example of how you can tell when people are. Of course, you want one more run it back right for this half, and Long C is the safe orb to get, so they're gonna go for it.
I like this too. So again, knowing that a couple of rounds, Skadoodle has been the one pressuring down towards the sewers with the operator, instead of really throwing a camera really deep down towards the sewers and try to give their the position away, yet Steel just placed that single camera towards this ledge, so that looking down with the camera, he could look down towards this area, and he could also look down towards here, right? So just pivoting the area, he knows that if T1's going to try to push that aggressively, but with more emphasis on trying to push Skadoodle back. Sorry,
Right.
so that single tag forces him away.
And it helps a lot because going for this Long C orb is pretty predictable. The scariest thing to deal with when you're going for this orb is Jet Op on the top of the default C box looking over the smoke. So the fact that Steel sees Jet here gives Asuna and Co over on Long C a lot more security to get this orb.
Yep.
And not really be scared of the op.
So now as they grab this, I'm gonna break it down just before you see the action coming through towards your screen, because there's a lot going on at the same time from both ends. So the run it back is being picked up here by Asuna. It's ready. You have Hiko that's with Dicey down towards Long C. Hiko, of course, if you're unfamiliar with 100 Thieves' lineup, he's the one playing as Sova, and Dicey's playing as Jet. Now you have the Owl drone that's going to come up, and you're popping a run it back right into C, right? So you're selling a bait here for 100 Thieves right now. And while this is happening, because you're starting to lurk forward here with Brax towards Long C, you have a recon dart that was thrown towards that cubby. You also still have Skadoodle that's opping towards the sewers on a tight angle. You have an impression that the A site chokehold, the A site choke point, is not under pressure by 100 Thieves. But what happens at the same time is that Steel and Nitro, both of them, are holding a tight angle on this area. So now all the action happens towards the Long C sign. Asuna is making a lot of noise. You're forcing a couple of rotates. And as Brax just made it around this corner, so his barrel's sticking out, but when he was in this position right here, he's like, guys, I have it now. You could rotate out. So Skadoodle already decided to rotate back. But what happens?
He's lost the angle.
Exactly. So he's lost the angle. He's lost the opportunity to trade. And you could see it, actually. Steel gets the kill, or actually it's Nitro that gets the kill. And you see it from the minimap. Skadoodle's already running back down towards the sewers because they've lost information. They might think that because of that kill, they might have worked back towards the Long A, but you've lost a lot of map control at that point just from that single miscommunication from 100 Thieves. Meanwhile, though, you're still able to move down towards the seaside. And And sorry, Kaplan, one thing that's good here, too, is that I did mention at the beginning of this round that Nitro was one away from a kill from the shadows. So he gets the kill onto Brax, and you'll notice that Steel is going to give the spike over to Nitro so that Nitro could eventually just teleport into C and plant.
Yeah, it's an excellent play.
Yeah. This would now allow Steel to just focus on playing the lurk role while you already have 4 players really watching the site here for 100 Thieves on a post plant. So they're in a great position to take the round away from T1 just from that slight slip from Brax at the beginning of the round. It's going to prove to be very costly. But the retake play, I got to say, we're going to see it coming up very soon. it's very, very, very nicely played by T1. It became chaotic in the end. It became like who was better in positioning and gunfights. I think it's the positioning and also pure luck here as well from where Nitro is at. So we'll notice here we have Nitro in the back of the site that's ready for a paranoia towards the spawn side. As you can see it from his position, it's going to be heading towards that area. You have a Rolling Thunder that's available from AZK for a retake. You have a Paranoia that's also ready for Spider, and as well as a Recon Dart for Dazed into the site. So there's a
You've got
lot.
The Hunter's Fury on Hiko as well, yeah.
Exactly.
So you've got a lot of back and forth utility.
And the reason why I didn't say the Owl Drone, actually, it's because it's currently being popped by Dazed onto the garage side. So I think you've mentioned here, Kaplan, one thing that was really good is that you hear the L drone come out from Asuna, and he's already going to curveball and break it, right?
And so for him to do this is so important, right? I mean, it is a risk, right? What if somebody's holding right behind the drone? What if they come out kind of behind that smoke on the CT choke point? And he is burning a flash that's important in his spot. He's telling where he is. It's very sacrificial play. I think individually, it's not something you'd feel great doing in ranked. But what Asuna is doing here is so important because they have to fear strong abilities like Rolling Thunder, right? I talked earlier about how if that Rolling Thunder were online that one round and he just sent it down long, because Asuna kills the drone, it makes T1 blind, right? Okay, a player flashed and killed our drone and he was in sight. Maybe they're all playing for sight. You don't get to find out with the drone because the drone's dead. And I think this Rolling Thunder ends up being dedicated exclusively to Nitro.
Correct.
But from T1's perspective, because that drone got flashed and killed by Asuna, they probably thought, okay, this is going to hit quite a few people. Had that drone made it into the site and lived, they would have recognized, okay, we don't need a Rolling Thunder this. They're all over on long.
Well, even at this point, because when you're trying to play the retake from T1, you don't necessarily know that you have a player playing towards the back of the site. But I think the Rolling Thunder that's heading towards this angle too could also make sure that it hits people hiding towards logs.
Yeah,
so you're,
and behind the default
exactly.
site too.
So you're covering a wide range, right, of places where people could be hiding in the back of the site. And because you don't have that information originally from the Owl drone, you kind of have to try to cover as much surface as possible on a retake, and it's step by step for T1. They want to make sure that they cover the back of the site, work the front after. You'll notice right now in this small screenshot too, though, there's a small little cloud burst that comes out here from Skadoodle that's going to land pretty much right over here, and that would be, unfortunately, the savior for Nitro and for 100 Thieves into this round. But just based off this screenshot and this screenshot coming up right here. So the amount of utilities was only 2, I think, being thrown at this part, because you haven't seen a Recon Dart being thrown yet from Dazed. Actually, he has the Owl drone that's been used. They used 3, right? So the Owl drone, a Rolling Thunder, and also a Fat Paranoia that came from Spider into the front, that covered, like, all defenders on a post-plant position from Nitro and from Asuna, or in a position where they should have died immediately right after. But the thing is, only Asuna dies. This was a great flash, actually, from Spider to get that kill. Now, off camera, what happens? So Nitro gets fully dazed. He's in the back of the site. There's a cloudburst that's up, and he's using that game sense, first off, one, not to shoot as much so that he doesn't give his position away. And secondly, he's just trying to nullify the daze that he got from the Rolling Thunder so that eventually he could assist his team. But off camera, what you could notice is that Dicey got a kill from the back of the seaside with daggers onto Skadoodle that was about to get into the backside to kill Nitro. So every single person so far for 100 Thieves are kind of like doing their job in terms of wasting utilities and also setting up for trades into this post-plant position. But in the end, it comes down to, once this dissipates, it's just Nitro going to work. That was a huge dart. The dart that came from Nitro was able to spot AZK and also spot this kill here from Nitro onto Dazed. So that's one kill. The second one should be coming up very soon because he knows that AZK is going to fight him. And there you go. Last but not least, when I'm saying 100 Thieves, every single person is doing their job, is during this whole time, this super fight came in from Steel into B into the back of the site, right?
Yeah.
So at this point, when Steel's finally able to come out from the spawn side and he whisked a couple of shots onto Spider first. Now Spider is focused on trying to aim at Steel towards the spawn side, but the communication wasn't there to say Nitro's still able, is still alive, in the back of the C site. Nitro comes out,
gets a 4K. Yeah, amazing stuff from 100 Thieves. And I mean that unfortunately that cloudburst from Skadoodle just gave Nitro so much room to make the play he did.
Oh
like
yeah,
you pointed out. And even if that play hadn't worked out, I think you're not in too much trouble even if Nitro dies early here, because Paranoia, Rolling Thunder, the key retake abilities for T1 got all invested on these two guys, and then you have a late lurk, Sova with Hunter's Fury and a Jet Op all the way along C, and you don't have those power abilities to deal with them.
Yeah.
It didn't even end up needing to come down to that, but I think even before Nitro got this multi-kill here, I think when I look at it, they're in pretty good shape.
Yeah. And it was a recon dart from Hiko plus a Hunter's Fury that came out too. Like,
yeah,
so much utility was used in like a span of 5 to 10 seconds. It came about very chaotic, but in the end, just a great position from Nitro was able to get that round there for 400 Thieves. So very well done.
Beautiful Valorant from 100 Thieves there.
Oh, yeah.
That is not stuff you can rehearse in a server. That is just 5.
That's communication.
Working together and communicating at the same time.
100% communication. All right, so now we're going to fast forward into round number 16. As you can see that 100 Thieves are slowly starting to inch their way back into the game. We're looking at the first half of how things were for Dicey and Nitro. It didn't look too good into their ratios. I think in the end we had like maybe 1 or 2 kills only for Nitro, but looking at the second half, he's already at 12. So he's already stepping up into the game. But I think what's most important right now here, Kaplan, is that we wanted to talk more about the control of the ultimates here into this round.
Yeah, so we've been looking at how you can kind of predict and expect certain teams to send certain agents to certain ult orbs to get an ult online for that round, and how there's certain ults that are pretty predictable, like using a Killjoy ult to retake A, for example. But I think this round's a good example of how you can counterplay and expect that. So you know that T1 actually have their breach ult here, and breach ulting from sewers into A is very, very common, probably the strongest breach ult on attack on Haven. I think there's a good chance 100 Thieves hit scoreboard, saw that they had breach ult, and thought, let's fight for sewers here because we know they probably want to get into sewers with the breach ult. So they do something proactive and go for the sewers control and catch these guys trying to take it. And I think it's just a really great example of how you can anticipate setups and read into their plays based on their ults, as well as the fact that I think it's a pretty big mistake to put AZK in the front there, right? You're on an eco. Maybe you don't want to have to use Rolling Thunder in this round, but maybe you get a pick or two with the Sheriff and it starts to be winnable. You're going to be really glad to have that ultimate. Putting AZK up in the front there, it seems kind of like a micro thing, but risking your key ult's life is just, your chance of winning this round in this 45 is already low, but it's way lower without the Rolling Thunder.
Exactly. You're making things very difficult.
Just put a different agent up in front, like, for example, Brax or Skadoodle. If you lose the Killjoy or Jet here, the round's still plenty winnable.
I think that was a little mistake here. So very similar to what Spider was trying to do before, trying to run in and get a defuse. Skadoodle catches him off guard, and this is actually really big for them in the end because they get an upgrade onto a Vandal. He gave it to Daze, who has full HP, so this is good for them. But the thing is, the biggest nuisance right now for T1 is the fact that Nitro throughout this series was able on his defender side to do very, very well with these backstabs. Or although it's like lurks or from the shadows for kills, he got so many flank kills into this series, and you could see a little bit as well. Kaplan, just as they're diffusing this spike, was that when they retook the site and they actually had the abilities that was being dropped by Brax into this window side, right, to try to get some information. It shows that the positioning or where you're placing your abilities might not be the best place for right now for these Postplants for Killjoy.
Right, yeah, I think, I get the idea of having it in the window, but I think you could pretty much guarantee a Smoke's either going to be in the window and or in the choke point of B. So that turret's not going to end up doing you a lot of favors no matter what in hitting that spike and hitting the diffuser. Whereas, right, if it was behind window room, it would have caught Nitro on his flank for sure. Correct.
Behind a window or somewhere where you want to watch Garage would kind of be like the best place you want to look at it for a Killjoy turret, because even on this box here, if you're trying to focus in on watching the front B, just to try to be a sounding alarm if somebody's diffusing, just as Kaplan was saying, if a smoke is happening towards that front of the B side, then it renders it useless. So now we're going to move into round number 20. You can see from the scoreboard that 100 Thieves are now in the lead into this game. So looking at the defender side here for 100 Thieves, definitely looking much stronger, or is it a lack of what's going on with T1's attack here? But we'll soon find out where T1's going to try to turn things over into this round. One thing that I do like here into this round is that you see from Asana's point of view, Kaplan, that he's already looking to push down towards his B side. A little bit different of how Skadoodle and AZK did it on that first half, right? So instead of having Dicey up down towards grass, he's going to be the one that's going to be watching his teammate towards the window, while Asuna is going to be the one that's going to try to push down or towards grass or towards window. I wonder if that could have been something that Skadoodle and AZK could have done on that previous half instead. But that's going to be for another story for a different day. But yeah, so that's going to come out. So the barriers are going to come up, and you could see how they're just walking down. I guess because they never really had that much pressure going into the beginning of the rounds towards this mid side, so Asuna wanted to try to gamble it. One thing that's good here is that he spotted the alarm bot, pinged it, and doesn't break it. So first off, my thoughts, or what are your thoughts, Kaplan, on that alarm bot in this position? Like how useful is that at that point? Because you're still giving so much map control and even an off angle from the defenders pushing down the window.
Right. Yeah, I think you might as well have put it a little closer to right under where Asuna is right now. Right, because you're giving them all of the window room still. If they do want to flank A, they can just go back around. They can get the turret. They're going to have to run into the turret anyway to flank. So the alarm bot's not really spotting the flank any more than the turret. They're kind of overlapping. So I think you might as well put it either somewhere else or deeper in that room where it's actually fulfilling its own purpose.
And your thoughts right now on how Steel is currently playing this A side? Because at first you saw him towards the sewers because he was actually placing these trap wires, actually. So he placed these trap wires deep down sewers, also deep down towards long A, well, more towards the entrance, a camera to spot. And then he leaves the site. So he's, for 100 Thieves, are looking to play some sort of a retake here towards the A side.
Right. Yeah. So I think the biggest difference between how 100 Thieves and T1 play their defense is T1 was really static, pretty stiff, right? Spider was almost always in the exact same spot on C. AZK was always sort of floating as his support. And I think that's fine when you have confidence in your retakes. 100 Thieves don't have as much of a retake comp, so it's more important that they're a little more aggressive. When you're aggressive on defense, you get a lot of value out of throwing new looks, right? So Asuna walked down window, right? That's a new look this round. And then they're kind of hinting that they're on their passive A setup, right? They're not fighting for short or long at all. And we haven't exactly shown the rounds, but previously in this half, when 100 Thieves have played passive A, they played a very retake heavy setup with wires really deep back in the A site, Steel hiding in heaven. It can be really good to throw teams off because Days might see, okay, like they're playing a passive A setup. Let's try to walk into the site here. Because Steel put his wires in really aggressive places on sewers and long, it can kind of trip up a attack IGL because they make a certain call based off a read they have, but then they run into something new. So maybe they run the clock, say let's walk into A, but if you hit this wire at the bottom of sewers, you really can't walk into the site without telling them quite ahead of time that you're on your way in. And so I think it's just a really good example of being proactive from Steel and how it can throw off Days and the rest of the team on their attack.
And now that I'm trying to really overanalyze things again, is I think it's a very gimmicky thing that Steel actually does in order to put that trap wire at that bottom of that doorway. Because if I don't think it makes sense as an owl drone that you want to break the trap wire, because if you go through it, you're not getting any more information out of that, and it's fully wasted. But if you're actually going over, you're going to say, hey, look, I'm going to ping right over here that there's actually a trap wire. Just get ready for it so we could actually break it. But the thing is when you're actually trying to break it, most players that are getting ready for a set attack and they're about to break it, they're literally just standing by the trap wire. They're gonna break it, then they're gonna go. So my thought process now, being in the shoes of Steel, is that as soon as this icon of the trapwire disappears, he could actually just start spamming into the trapwire area and hopefully just wall some people down. Of course, at this point, I guess the trapwire has already been broken, but it was definitely a nice gimmick idea that he was trying to do here and trying to getting him down.
Yeah, super nerdy, cheesy stuff, but it's safe. Zero risk involved.
That's correct. So my other thing here, as you see this attack is happening towards this A side, another thing that kind of changed is that Asuna actually ran into it. So instead of shooting the alarm bot, he actually ran into it where it actually sounds the alarm, Then he breaks it, but instead he decides to fall back and move out
Right.
towards this A-Link side to meet up with his teammates. So a nice little change of what they're trying to do here for 100 Thieves, trying to sell a bait that there's a potential of somebody flanking or super flanking towards the sewers.
Right. Yeah, and the turret's off because Brax is out of range. So you say maybe I'm flanking, maybe I'm not. Whereas had he left it alone, they probably wouldn't have even worried about the flank.
And that's it, right? So he's forced to go all the way back towards the sewers. Now he actually reactivates his turret, but he doesn't really know exactly if Asuna made it towards that choke yet or not. So he's there for 100 Thieves. They're actually keeping one player away from this retake that they have, mainly coming in from this A side. So very well done so far. And again, another section where we put a screenshot, and there's so much going on. From what I see here, we have a recon dart that comes out. We have cyber cages for this retake, a smoke that's being thrown towards long, and even hot hands towards the default, and a paranoid spider, right? So a lot of utilities that was being deployed from 100 Thieves to really take control of this back site and front site and put T1 back against them. You even notice the cyber cage towards the back site here too from Steel.
Yeah, every single piece they can get out all at one motion.
So that allows here Dicey to come forward, and like you said, like all these recon darts and all this stuff coming out, they're getting spotted one by one. But miraculous play from two players right here, a superb flick from Brax, and they're able to tie it up 10-10. So you can't really ask for anything better for 100 Thieves on how they tried to play the retake, but you could definitely ask for nothing better for T1 than that superb 4 versus 2 that they're able to win after.
Exactly. The beauty of Valorant, right? You just have this amazing utility-focused retake, but anything's possible. Your great retake forced two players to have to hit a bunch of shots, but hey, they still can. So
now we're going to get into round number 21. Everything's tied 10-10. We just talked about that superb 4 versus 2 clutch that AZK and Brax were able to do together now. Going into round number 21, I just wanted to fast forward all the way to the Postplant situation, the retake from 100 Thieves, and how beautifully played it was for the defender side on the retake. So as you can see, that the spike is planted towards the C side, and you have currently Nitro in his position inside the garage of the window, and you see that he's prepping up a paranoia that's gonna throw towards his default spot. This is basically kind of like a guess, thinking that nobody's really rotated out from default before, and you're just trying to go for a combo as a team to try to retake the site. And the reason why I say combo is while he's doing this, you also have Asuna that's actually going to throw a curveball towards the spawn, and a recon dart that's also going to be shot by Hiko that's going to land into this spot. So all this combo, what it does is that it's actually going to blind the paranoia onto AZK, the curveball onto Spider, and eventually lead to a double kill onto Skadoodle as well, because I think the recon dart scans him too. So instantly you have a potential of like a 3 versus 1 on the end of that execution. So just want to let you guys have a look at that. So you see, so as that that curveball came out from Asuna, towards the spawn side, Spider is fully blinded. He can't shoot a dart. The paranoia came out and hit AZK. He can't shoot the dart. So the dart's going to scan actually 3 players on top of that, and that just allows Asuna to get this double kill. And AZK trades it out for 1, but like I said, it's an immediate 3 versus 1 right after. A very tough round again for Brax to win, because at that point, when Brax is going to try to go for a challenge onto the spike, well, you have a situation again, Kaplan, where unfortunately for T1, they're not planting that spike in positions that they could have those Jiggle Peak challenges.
Right, exactly. Yep. And it was just such a beautiful retake from 100 Thieves. And we saw how, on the flip side, very similar looking rounds, T1 retaking against 100 Thieves. 100 Thieves, on that last attack round, for example, they had Asuna and Nitro in the site holding down the fort, making T1 spend the utility, but they had a lot of players on long, right? Whereas T1 played really heavy 3 agents in the site. So when 100 Thieves flood all the utility on the site, they're getting great value out of it, right? That paranoia is not whiffing. There's no whiffed rolling thunder. They're hitting everybody with this utility.
So I just noticed here that the recon dart probably does not scan Skadoodle because he's already far back down towards that ramp. But as Asuna is already focused on challenging Spider, just again, when you have that mechanical skill and you can have that reflex, you're going to be able to see Skadoodle at that point, react to that shot, and get the double kill after here.
Yeah, pretty easy flick for Asuna to get from Spider on Skadoodle.
Awesome. All right, so now fast forwarding to round number 22. Still in the lead by 1 is going to be 100 Thieves versus T1 for this quarterfinals of First Strike North America. And my biggest question to you at this point here, Kaplan, is looking at the money situation for these two teams. You know how it's really good for 100 Thieves, but the thing is for T1, they're on a very, very low money economy where they seem to decide to want to force all the way down to potentially do 2 broken buys into this round and onto the next should they lose this one here. So I want to know your train of thoughts. Was this a good idea to actually go for this type of buy?
Yeah, so I think it's interesting, right? I think, if you pretended there were no ults in the picture, I think I'd want to save and get a full buy, right? You have guns against guns, best chance of winning, and then you can just play to get into overtime. I think your odds might feel small with the Sheriff or Frenzy or something, but something important to look at is the ults. So if we look here, I'll pause it real quick. Is Austin has only got, the Run It Back, and 100 Thieves are missing the rest of their powerful ults, but we've got Rolling Thunder, the Omen ult are both online, and I actually think Daze ult, the Hunter's Fury, is online as well. So
true.
In terms of ults, T1 favor in this round, right? If they took this round to save and play for a gun round on the next, 100 Thieves might have got more of their key ults rolling, and then you'd actually have a more even round. So the money's bad for T1, but their ults favor them more this round than they will the next round. So playing to kind of win this round instead of evening out the ults for next round, I think is a pretty good choice from them.
So that's why you could probably see then, as they're setting up here the play for T1, is eventually they want to activate the Rolling Thunder from AZK, as they're all grouping up right now for T1 towards the sewers. And as you mentioned, I think you were saying that the ult take from Breach from sewers into A is pretty much one of the strongest ults into the game too.
Yeah, exactly. It's a super popular one to use on attack, right? You just launch it, you get all of Deep Hell and all of the sight corners.
The thing is that was really good is Hiko was able to put the Owl Drone out. So the Owl Drone tags Brax. I don't know if he was able to actually spot maybe 1 or 2 more players, but that definitely gave the cue here for 100 Thieves that something's going to be happening very soon, and they want to adapt to it. And the way that they adapt to it for 100 Thieves is that they're not really trying to turtle back. They literally run it back forward, and here you go. Asuna leans just away from the Rolling Thunder and is able to get 3 kills out of that and fully denies, unfortunately, that Forcebuy that came in from T1.
Such a nice play, because I'm pretty sure the Rolling Thunder probably hit Steel and Hiko, and we did talk about exactly how, what can we expect when a team has Rolling Thunder, and they do exactly as expected. And yeah, just amazing to use the Run It Back and then barely beat, it was like pixels that he had run past the Rolling Thunder right here. Yeah, he barely beats it and then just gets a really nice spray down.
Yeah.
A lot of good things worked out for Asuna there, and he really kind of single-handedly made a pretty nice and hard play to pull off, and it really shut T1's shot at winning the game down. And now they're missing kind of that power ult. Looks like they might have the Killjoy one online, but still they're probably not thrilled about that.
So I think with that's pretty much going to conclude the VOD review that we wanted to talk about. At the same time, I don't think we wanted to talk about the last final round, whenever that is, because there wasn't anything that was really big out of those plays. And actually, if you guys want to know the final result, we'll make sure that we post a full link of the matchup that was on Riot's YouTube at the bottom of our description. But hopefully you guys enjoyed it. This is our first one together, so I know it's a little bit choppy here and there, but we're definitely open for all of your feedback, all your comments, all your suggestions, your thumbs up, your thumbs down, your subscriptions on trying to make these VOD reviews a little bit better. So please let us know in your comment what you like, what you didn't like. There's definitely some more things that are happening for us right now into the Valorant scene. More specifically for you, Kaplan, I know that you're doing something a little bit different in terms of angles, though, with these VOD reviews on your own channel. So tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, so, I was formerly the in-game leader for Space Station Gaming, and now I'm looking into opportunities as a player and as a coach, and I really enjoy educating people in the game. So on my YouTube channel, it's youtube.com/itskaplan, ITSKAPLAN. I'm kind of looking at taking certain approaches for certain VODs and really picking a theme, like, today let's check out ult economy or how to gain information on a certain map. and trying to offer some pretty heavy focus criticism on certain teams in the VOD review. I'd really let people who are watching get very focused takeaways. So you can kind of find more of that on my YouTube channel. And, I think both this channel and what Vansilli and I are doing here, as well as my channel, I think we're just trying to help you guys learn the game. It's a beautiful, very deep and complicated game. And I think the easier it is to see that, and the more you see how deep it is, the more fun it is to watch, play, and talk about. So.
Exactly. Most importantly is to have fun. For me, just make sure you follow me on socials as well at youtube.com/Vansilli and twitter.com/Vansilli. Not sure what I'll be doing yet, but definitely will be keeping an eye on the community and trying to pump out more of these videos and trying to stay in tuned and communicating with you guys as well. So with that, I guess we could call this a day here, Kaplan, and then we'll see you guys into the next VOD.